You've got questions, we've got answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box, where trauma-trained therapists tackle real questions from real people. I'm your host, Lindsay bringing you grounded insights you can actually use, brought to you by Therapy Utah. Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We are here to answer your mental health questions. So write in and ask us your questions, and we will try to help you navigate these tough mental health questions that all of us are experiencing. Today, I'm excited to have with me Ben Shalati. Ben, thanks for joining us.
I'm thrilled to be here. And you got Shalati right. It's tough.
I did.
I'm so
yes.
proud.
I've been practicing, so I'm so happy I got it right. So happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thrilled to be here.
Yes. So let me tell you a little bit. I'll introduce you, Ben, and then I want you to tell us a little bit about you. So this is kind of more professional, but we'd love to hear a little more about you.
Great.
Ben is a therapist, a professor, an author, and a podcast host whose work has helped thousands of people navigate the intersection of faith, identity, belonging, and connection. How do you feel about that?
That's so generous.
No, it's really true.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He is the author of A Walk in My Shoes and has become a respected voice in conversations surrounding LGBTQ experiences within the Latter-day Saint community. Ben, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about you outside of your professional, experience. Tell us a little bit about you.
So people who have heard of me usually know two things about me: that I'm a Latter-day Saint and that I'm gay. Those are the things people mostly know about me.
Okay.
But I am an extrovert. I love being with people. I love talking to people. I think almost every activity is better with someone else there. I just love people. And I'm also known for loving cacti. I love cacti. I have people gift me cactus things all the time because everyone knows that I love them and I love everything I'm given. So,
what do you love about cacti?
Okay, so I lived in Arizona for 5 years. That's where I did my PhD. Okay. And while I was there, that's also where I came to love myself as a gay person, and also where I came out publicly, where I first started doing public advocacy. So I think there's just this sense of this is where I learned to love myself. So I love Arizona and Tucson in particular so much, but also saguaro cacti are my favorite. Okay. And they're just tall and majestic. They take 50 to 70 years before they grow their first arm. So they're all just they just seem old and wise, but they're also unique and have their own personalities. So they're just kind of like people.
I love that. I knew there was something to it. I'm like, there's something there. So that's very cool. What kind of cacti did you say?
Saguaro. They're the tall ones with the arms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
They're awesome.
I love that. So thank you for giving us that background.
Of
so
course.
I'm going to never forget that about you. I love that.
And I also love Disneyland. So
okay.
Another thing I'm known for.
Yeah. All Disney parks or just Disneyland?
Well, I've only been to 3 of them, but I'm sure the other ones are great too.
Okay.
So someday I'll go to the ones in Asia. We'll see.
Okay. But Disneyland, you're a fan of.
Oh, yeah.
Been there enough. Okay. Excellent. Well, today I think this is such a great question for you around understanding people that are different than us, particularly family members. So we'll just launch into the question, and then I would love your thoughts on this. The question is, I have family members that live so differently than me. I love them, but I don't know how to support them.
Yeah.
So let's go with that. When you hear that, I appreciate first of all, this listener's question. That's really honest. They live so differently. I love them, but I don't know how to support them. Why do you think it's hard to support people that feel different than we are, particularly in our family?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think the main issue comes from people thinking that by supporting someone, whatever that looks like, implies that we agree with them.
Yes.
And people in faith communities will use the word condone. I don't want to condone what they're doing by supporting them. So let me just tell you a personal story. Okay. So I'm an active Latter-day Saint. My parents are both converts to the church. They joined the church after they got married. So most of my relatives aren't Latter-day Saints. And when I decided to go on a mission, my aunt, who I'm very close with, my dad's sister, was understandably concerned. She's like, you are wasting 2 years of your life to go teach this silly thing. And when I got assigned to serve in Mexico, she was so thrilled. She's like, at least you'll learn something helpful, you'll learn Spanish.
A language.
Yeah. But she very politely told me that she thought I was wasting my time and it'd be better for me just to go to college. And I wasn't offended by that. I appreciated her honesty. But then when I still went, she went to my farewell talk at church. She wrote me a letter every week of my mission, the whole 2 years. And then when I came home, she was there at church to support me. When I made the choice, a choice that she disagreed with, she was just happy to support me. Then when I was about 26 or 27, I came out to her as gay. And her response, once again, was very loving and kind. And she said, Ben, you don't have to be part of that homophobic church. You can just live your life. And once again, like so kind, like she did it with the utmost kindness, but I chose not to leave. I chose to stay. And then, it's been 15 years since we had that conversation.
Wow.
And when I wrote a book about being a gay Latter-day Saint called A Walk in My Shoes, she not only bought a copy, but she read it twice and shared it with her friends. And she brags about her gay Mormon nephew who was making the world a better place.
Wow.
Okay. So in no way did she support like these decisions I was making with my faith, but she cared about me. And so if I cared about something, she wanted to be part of it.
It's amazing. Boy, I feel like she could write a book actually on this. Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal that she showed up for you, even despite her not agreeing or not feeling like it was the right thing for you to do. Talking about the mission, not the right thing for you to do, but showed up for you pretty consistently.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Definitely. And, I'm not sure it's always the right thing to like tell someone like, hey, I disagree with the choice you're making.
Sure.
But in that case, because I had such a good relationship with my aunt, I didn't take offense to it because I knew she was doing it from the best of intentions. And I also knew that no matter what I chose, she was going to be with me on that journey.
Yeah.
Can I share one more story?
Please.
So I live in a very crazy house. I live in this big house in Provo, and I have a 92-year-old landlady who I'm like best friends with. We've lived together for 8 years. And we also have a Peruvian woman who lives with us who's in her 50s. And we're all very close. There should be a TV show based on us.
I was going to say, very eclectic group here.
We have a lot of fun. And Raquel doesn't speak English super well, and Charlotte doesn't have great hearing, but they make it work.
So fun.
Yeah. But Raquel, the Peruvian woman, she has a gay son. And so when she learned that I was gay, she started talking to me about her gay son and telling some stories. And she said that when he was getting married to a man, she decided not to go to the wedding. And she was talking to her religious leader and was like, hey, I decided not to go. And he stopped her and he said, you were going to go to that wedding. It matters to them, and what matters is their relationship. You don't have to agree with gay marriage, but you should support your son.
Wow.
And so I said, well, did you go? And she said, of course I went, and I danced.
Oh, I love that.
And I love that the thing that brought him joy was something that she could rejoice in. And what I've learned, through my experience with loved ones who make choices that I disagree with, and also as I've witnessed people in clients in therapy, is that when there's something that's making someone happy, even if we don't agree with it, we can rejoice that they're happy. And the thing that matters to them can matter to us.
And there's a difference there, right? Like you said, support doesn't mean agreement, but I can support you because I love you.
Exactly.
And your happiness makes me happy, and I can support that.
100%.
I love that idea. And I think separating those two things out is so important and can be challenging, right? Like, I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to change you. I don't have to try to manage you. Like, that's not my job. I just get to love you and show up that way. I actually think of that and I think, oh, that feels freeing. Like, if I can just show up in love and I don't have to have all this other burden, then that feels great. Why do you think that we sometimes feel the need to change or to correct, or, even your aunt, like, maybe she wasn't doing that, but why do you think we feel that need?
Yeah, I think that there's just this natural human tendency to want people to believe correct things and to have correct ideas and correct worldviews and correct teachings and those kinds of things. And sometimes we focus on like what we think is, quote unquote correct, more than we think about how do we love the person? How do we show up for the person? I'll give you another story. So my dad now is in his 80s. During the shutdown, when the pandemic started in 2020, I spent about 4 months at my parents' house. And there was so he was in his 70s back then, and there was this new show on Netflix called Heartstopper, and it was about two gay teens in England, and it is like a very wholesome show, but it's about like this romance with two gay teens. So we didn't have a lot to do, so I was like, "Hey, Dad, do you want to watch this show?" And he did, and he sat and watched this whole show with me, a show that he probably wouldn't have chosen to watch, but that meant so much to me that like this thing that mattered to me mattered to him, and so. And we didn't have to talk after, like, is it okay for like two teenage boys to date each other? That wasn't the purpose of it. It was something I wanted to watch, and he cared because I cared. Very similarly, I have a good friend who has a kid who loves Roblox, and he's like, I don't care about Roblox.
That's right.
But my kid loves Roblox, so I care about Roblox.
Yes.
And so going back to your initial question, which is like, why does this matter to us? And I think sometimes we focus too much on what we view as correct instead of how to love someone. And the truth is that we're going to see the world in different ways, and that can feel like maybe we're butting heads sometimes. But if we love the person, then the head butting just like matters less and less.
Yeah, I love that reminder. Like, it is love versus correction. I've heard it said that, if we're trying to correct before we connect, we will always struggle. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's our kids or with our, our family members, our friends, but if we're trying to correct and say, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, before we really have a connection and a relationship, we are going to struggle.
Yes.
And, you talking about the Roblox thing, I think that same thing happened with my son. My son loved Xbox, and I hate Xbox. And in fact, it's a frustration for me. But again, when he was a teenager, I thought, man, I lack connection with him. So I've got to meet him where he's at. And it was meeting him down in the basement playing Xbox. And I was like, oh my gosh, poke my eyes out. And yet it was the thing that actually started to help us have a better relationship in his teenage years, was going down and talking about things he cared about. And guess what? It didn't matter that I didn't like it. It didn't matter. It was about him and the relationship first. Yeah. So I love that reminder. So, when you've had a lot of good examples of people in your life that have shown up well, what do you think are mistakes people make when trying to support a loved one who are making different choices than their own choices?
Yeah. I think that the problem or the issue that people have most often is they feel like by love, they will show their love by correcting the person. And I think that definitely can happen. And it can be a loving thing to do. But people focus too much on like, well, I don't agree with this choice. And they make sure that the person understands like, well, I don't agree with this choice that you're making. So I'll talk about my dad again.
Yeah.
My dad served in the Army during the Vietnam War, and he was assigned to Korea, and he had a very rough experience there.
Okay.
And so he does not like leaving the country. And so because of that, he gets nervous every time I leave the country. And I leave the country a lot. And one time I was going to visit my mission in Mexico, and I served in northern Mexico in a town called Juarez, which is pretty dangerous.
Okay.
And it was like a very dangerous time to go there.
So you're like, Dad, let's do exposure therapy.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. I'm going.
So I'm like, I am going here. And he's like, I think that's a bad choice. And I don't think you should go. And do you know what I did? I went anyway, but I didn't tell him I was going until I got back.
Oh, interesting.
Because I knew he would be concerned, and I knew that he would try and convince me not to go. Yeah. And thankfully I was safe and had a wonderful time. But when we tell people that we disapprove of what they're doing, what we end up getting is less of that person. And so if you want to have less of that, of your loved one in your life, tell them what to do, because people aren't going to do what we want them to do.
You know what, though? I'm curious about this with your dad, because your dad was genuinely concerned about your safety.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think as a parent, you feel that like, oh, if I don't tell you what I think you should do or what's wrong with this, then I'm afraid you're going to walk into some really unsafe or difficult territory. And so I think sometimes it feels, and again, I can speak from my own experience as a parent, it feels like, oh no, I have to do this because this is my way of keeping my child safe. I'm curious your thoughts about that.
Yeah. And I'm not a parent, so
Right.
I can't speak from a parent point of view. But I don't think it's bad to let your kid know that you are concerned about something to try and guide them. But you also have to let them make their choice, because they're going to make whatever choice that they're going to make. They want to make. Yeah. I think my dad might have been a little too emphatic in like telling me not to go. And maybe that it was just like, hey, Ben, I think this is a bad idea. You shouldn't go. But I think he was a little forceful about it.
Okay.
This was years ago. I don't super remember.
Yeah.
But I just, after that, I was like, I don't think I can share this adventure with him until after it's over. So I don't know where that balance is. I think it might depend on the kid, the parent, your relationship, because some kids do need a lot of guidance.
Yeah.
More than others. And so telling a kid like, hey, here's why this might not be a good idea, especially different ages, makes a lot of sense. But in a lot of ways, they're just going to do what they want to do no matter what.
Right.
So,
But do you think the opposite is true as well? Like that there could be kids or people in your life that actually hear the disapproval and say, oh no, I can't do that. Like I'm not going to Mexico. I can't come out of the closet because I'm too afraid of losing that connection. And I'm so afraid of what that might feel like. And I'm just not willing to do that. So you can have the opposite as well.
Definitely.
So what would you say to those people that are so afraid to disappoint a parent or a loved one, but that feel maybe they're not living in their truth? What would you say to that?
So most of my clients that I work with are LGBTQ Latter-day Saints, or people working to navigating faith and sexuality or gender. That's the majority of my clients. And so I hear a lot of my clients say that they'll like come out to a parent or come out to a religious leader and they'll be encouraged not to tell anybody. Like, hey, this is a secret that like you can keep, like not a lot of people have to know about this. And that's really painful for them because they've spent years hiding, years feeling like this is something that's bad or wrong that I need to change and fix. And so being told like, hey, don't tell anyone, just kind of like steeps them in this shame. And I was talking to a parent about this recently, whose 16-year-old came out to her, and she's like, well, I encouraged my kid not to tell anybody because I knew he would get teased and I was just trying to protect him.
Totally.
And I was like, I see where you're coming from. And that is so kind. And if you tell your kid not to come out, which is like such a personal decision, and then they do anyway and it goes well, then they're not going to trust you as much anymore because you gave them bad advice. And if they say, hey, I'm going to come out, and then you talk with them about it, like, hey, like tell us more, like why you want to do that, and have a conversation about why they want to have that conversation with other people, and then say, hey, is it okay if I share some of my concerns? And then you share that as concerns, not like, hey, this is the right thing to do. Then you're having a conversation. And then if the kid comes out and it doesn't go well, you've then had a stronger relationship with your kid, and they can then come to you, and they don't have anyone to blame but themselves.
I like that.
And so so often parents and loved ones do things to like with the best of intentions, but really we have to like you got to let the kid learn their lessons. Like you got to let them try something that doesn't work. I have a very good friend who has been coming out lately, and it hasn't gone well in a lot of ways. And you know, they're an adult, and they were saying recently, like, I kind of wish I hadn't come out. I wish I hadn't told anyone. And I said, well, tell me more about that. And they said, well, people haven't been as kind as I would like, and it's made me feel more shame. And I said, well, how would you have felt if they had been more affirming? And they said, well, I think I would have been relieved to have come out. And so it was the response that they got that was the pain point, not the fact that they were sharing parts of themselves.
Yes. So how do you, again, honor that, not being able to control people's responses? How do you honor self and say, you know what, this is who I am? I mean, to a listener that is saying, gosh, I have something that whatever it is that I don't want to share, that I'm afraid of the response. What would you tell people? Because the truth is, we don't get to control responses. We don't get to tell people most of the time, hey, I'm going to tell you something really hard, and this is what I need from you. This is how I need you to show up for me. Like, wouldn't that be lovely? Yeah. But the truth is that often doesn't happen, and we don't get to control responses. So what would you tell people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sorry we even have to discuss this.
I know.
But this is a reality.
It is.
And so as queer people, as LGBTQ people, like I have a mental filing cabinet of all the things that people around me have said about LGBTQ people. And so
like painful things.
Yeah, and positive things.
Okay.
And so when people have said positive things, when they've said negative things, like I remember it.
Yeah.
I came out publicly when I was 30 on my blog, which was a thing people used to have back in the day before everyone had
I remember those. That's right. We all had one.
And before I came out publicly, there were about 100 people that I wanted to tell in person, or like send them a letter or a note so they knew before I just like told everybody. The last person I told was a friend of mine from high school who had made a homophobic joke when we were like 17.
Wow.
And 13 years later, I remembered.
It stuck with you.
Yes. Yeah. And so the reason I tell that is I also knew the kind things people had said and the nice things people had said. And my parents were people 5 and 6 that I came out to when I was 23. And I felt comfortable coming out to them because our next door neighbor growing up was a lesbian. And her name was Karen, which was a name that was okay to have back then.
That's right. No longer.
Yes. Yeah. And I saw the way my parents were nice to Karen, the way they treated her. And I also heard the ways they talked about her when she wasn't there. And they were so kind to her.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, if my parents are that kind to Karen, who is gay, they'll be at least that kind to me. And so if you're worried about how people are going to respond, you probably have a good idea of people who are going to be good people to come out to, I'd say talk to those people first.
Yes.
Talk to the people who are going to be a soft landing
First.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't start with the hard conversation, the person who's going to push back. And then after you have some allies, some people on your team, some people that you can trust, then focus on having the hard conversation that you've got people you can trust.
Yeah.
So when I was living in Tucson, where I did my PhD, where I came out publicly, I started a little support group for LGBTQ Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
And I was the oldest person. I was in my 30s. Most of them were in their 20s. And I kind of became like the mentor to a lot of people, even though I was still figuring it out myself.
Sure.
And I had a good friend who came out to his parents, and it didn't go well. And then he immediately drove to my house, and like I opened the door, and he was shaking. It was like so hard. And he just like sat on my couch, and we talked for a while, and I was able to calm him down, tell him I loved him, and
Wow.
things with his parents got better, but that moment had been really hard. And so if there's a moment that's going to be hard, make sure you got someone on your team.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have someone on your team, right? Before. And that soft place to land when you start with those hard conversations.
Yeah. And if there's a part of you that you've battled with accepting or understanding for years, it's hard when someone then pushes back against that. And so the best way to love yourself is just do self-exploration. I had a client recently come in, and she was like, I think I'm gay, but I might not be gay. And so we walked through, what orientation means and what different kinds of the different kinds of orientation, like romantic and physical and intellectual and all those things. And then we walked through people that she had found attractive in different ways, and I even pulled up some pictures of celebrities and had her talk like guys and gals, and she's like, I am more drawn to all of the women. I was like, yes, that makes sense.
Yes.
But I in no way would say, therefore you are gay. That is not my job to say, but it's just like to help her explore.
Yes.
And so, as you explore, as you ask yourself questions, as you talk through things, you'll become more and more okay with the reality of your life.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say something and then change your mind. Like, these don't have to be choices that we have forever. Like, I don't know a single LGBTQ person who hasn't changed the label they use.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's a exploration process.
Yes.
I didn't start using the term gay till I was 29, but I started coming out when I was 23. And
what did you call it then?
I said that I had same gender attraction or same sex attraction, and then I started to hate that term, so I just didn't say anything. I would just say I'm more attracted to men than women.
Isn't that interesting that we need to label it too? Like that feels so important that we have some type of label on it. And again, when you're like, I didn't like that, so I didn't say anything for a while, and now I say I'm gay, and that we feel the need to do that. And I understand why. I wish we didn't, but it helps us kind of categorize and understand. And I mean, we have labels on everything, right? I teach, or you teach as well, and I've had students say, gosh, couldn't we just get rid of labels? Like, wouldn't that be so nice? And I'm like, yes, but think about it. We label a chair because we know that's its function. We understand why there's labels in the grocery store. But somehow we have found that labeling people gives us this way of saying, oh, you are in this box or you're in this box. And it's interesting. I think, gosh, do we really need to do that? I'm curious your thoughts even on that piece.
Yeah. Labels are tricky because they mean different things to different people.
That's right.
And so when you say a label, it means something to you, but it might mean something different to somebody else.
That's right.
And so sometimes we have to explain a label. So I started using the term gay, which for me has felt very good and very life affirming, because when I identify as having same-sex attraction, that was the time when I hated myself. If I could have pushed a button to be straight, I would have pushed that button. And I was taught very explicitly by a church leader that this was a trial of mortality that wouldn't exist when I was in the next life. And so that made me want was just to be dead. I was like, well, I'd rather be dead and straight than alive and with same-sex attraction.
Wow.
And so in my late 20s, I was like, this isn't changing. I prayed to change. I fasted to change. I went to therapy to change. None of that worked. This is just how I'm meant to be. And so then I started to use the term gay as a life affirming term. I was like, I'm going to live my life the best way that I came to earth. And so that's what that label means to me. And so when I say the term gay, I'm like, what it means to me is I'm going to live my best life the way God sent me to earth. That's what it means to me. And other people hear that as like, oh, you want to have sex with a bunch of men. And I'm like, well, they can think what they think, but that's not what it means to me. And I'm happy to explain it to them if they want to know.
Do you feel like you do a lot of explaining?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As an LGBTQ person in a heteronormative society, you have to explain yourself a lot.
A lot. Mm-hmm. How does that, like for you, does that feel frustrating, or is that just, this is part of the gig?
Oh, it is both frustrating and so fun.
Fun?
Yes.
Tell me what's fun about it.
I just, like, I'm an educator, so
Okay.
I love changing people's minds and changing their expectations.
Okay.
Like if you look at a picture of me, like I look like a Mormon. You know, like I have short parted hair, like when I put on a suit and tie, like I fit in.
Yeah.
Like I look like I'm supposed to look. And then when I tell people I'm gay, they're like, what? You know, it's surprising to them. And I kind of like that. I like changing people's expectations of what they think someone can be or what they're like.
Yeah. And you've obviously been very public about it. And that has felt comfortable for you, important to you. Like, tell me about that process, because as you go out on a blog, like you open yourself up. I mean, you're a filleted fish at that point. You get to have all of these, positive, and affirming and also probably really hurtful comments, like not just in your inner circle of 100, but boy, you put it out there. What was the reason for that for you?
Yeah. The first thing was I just couldn't hide anymore. Like I was dying on the inside. Like for me personally, I had to be open to live. And I was so tired of being misunderstood because, I mean, I talk with my hands, I've got some gay mannerisms, but for the most part, like I'm not who someone would consider, like I have a very deep voice, so people were often surprised when I would tell them I was gay, especially since I was actively trying to hide it. And being misperceived for so long was just exhausting.
Yeah. And
so just being like, hey, I'm Ben, I'm gay, I'm a Latter-day Saint was just so freeing. It was like this weight was on me that I just hadn't noticed. And the Sunday after I came out publicly, I was actually teaching Sunday school at church. And I knew some people had read the post, but most of them hadn't because we weren't all friends on social media. And then while I was giving this lesson, I was like, I just have to mention it right now. And I did. So I told everyone in like these dozens of people like in this lesson. And then when I sat down, the leader of the congregation told me after, he said, I saw you sit down and you just exhaled and I saw a weight come off of you. So I could tell that was a healing moment. I was so glad we got to have that healing moment in our church. And
that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And also that he was aware enough of you to recognize that. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And I'm so glad he didn't say like, that wasn't appropriate. Like that wasn't the time, but instead to be like, I saw you heal in that moment. And I'm so glad that happened.
And we got to be a part of that.
Yeah.
We got to witness that.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And right now, the congregation I attend, it's right near BYU, right near Brigham Young University. So there's a lot of like retired professors and the young married couples who live in their basements.
Okay.
And so there's like so many people over 80 in my congregation, like so many. And they're all like conservative people, but they're all really kind. And so I was like, I'm like so out. Like I've got a book and a podcast when I started attending this congregation. And I just didn't know how they were going to treat me. And I was like afraid. And I was like, wow, I am so out. I'm so okay. Like I'm 40 years old and I was afraid. And so I realized I had to like push through that. And I started to get to know these widows in my ward and they just love me to pieces.
I love that.
And because they know me.
Yeah.
And they know me as Ben. And like my label to them is Ben. And Ben is kind and he is fun and he visits us and we have him over for dinner and he's attracted to men. It's like that part of me that might make them uncomfortable is like one of the many things that makes up who I am, but the thing that matters to them is I care about them and they care about me.
And that's so important. Like this is one of the parts of me, right? Yeah. There's so much to Ben and that's an important part, but there's so many other important parts to you as well.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. And there have been people who have fixated on the fact that I am gay and that has made them uncomfortable. And then we haven't been able to form a close relationship. And that's a bummer for me and it's a bummer for them.
Yeah.
And there was this a man in my congregation who like when I was being more open about being gay, he was like, I'm a little concerned. And I was like, hey, I wrote this book. Will you read my book? And then he read it. And that meant so much to me. And after he read it, he had some questions. And I think we weren't totally on the same page, but he had learned, and I just cared so much that he had taken some time to hear my story.
Isn't that amazing? Like people that aren't just like, nope, that doesn't feel comfortable. No, thank you. Yeah. But like, I'm taking the time to learn. I'm taking the time to understand.
Yeah.
And that would be the next question I have is, for the people that are supporting loved ones that are in this situation, I'm curious if you've had any discussions with any of your loved ones and what their experience was like as they supported you.
Yeah. I've had so many discussions with my loved ones, and,
Yeah.
as my understanding of myself has changed and shifted, we've had ongoing conversations as well. I remember there's a time when I started dating guys, and I was going to just stay single, and then I started dating guys. And so I called my dad. My mom had Alzheimer's at the time. She has since passed away.
Okay.
But she didn't need to have the conversation because she didn't even know who I was.
Sure.
Anyway, side note.
Yes.
But I called my dad, and I called all my siblings to just like tell them like, hey, I'm going to start dating guys. You might hear that I'm doing that, and I just want you to be aware of that. And they were all so kind. And one of my brothers just said, hey, when you have a boyfriend, I can't wait to meet him.
Wow.
And I never got a boyfriend, which is a bummer for everybody. But
Mm-hmm.
but it just meant so much that they really cared. And I told one of my friends' moms, she's in her 50s, and she said, hey, let us know how dating goes. And she's like a very active and committed Latter-day Saint. And I know that like her desire for me would be like to be like the best Latter-day Saint I can be. And I often would tell my clients when they would start dating, I was like, hey, you have to let someone know about your dates. Like, you're new to this space. You have to talk through what you're experiencing with someone, so they can like point out red flags and green flags. And so after every date, I called this friend's mom, every single one. And we laughed our heads off at the crazy things that happened. And it was so nice for me to have a mom I could talk to.
Wow.
who after every single experience, I knew, like, on every day I knew I was gonna debrief after. And that helped me keep my values. And it also just made me feel so loved. And I even told her the last time I visited her, because I'm not dating anymore, I was like, I'm just kind of bummed I don't get to call you so much.
Yeah, this was so fun.
Yeah, because
you guys got to find something else to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never asked her, like, do you think this is the right choice for me to date? I never asked her that. And I don't know what she thinks. But I know that she cared enough about my life to show curiosity about it. And I think that's what really matters. So if there's anyone making a choice that we disagree with, the best thing we can offer them is curiosity.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, tell me more about this thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to go to Mexico. Why are you going to go?
Yeah.
You know, you're going to a pride parade. Why do you want to go?
Yes.
You know, you're coming out. Help me understand that experience, and letting them talk and share, because the more we understand their experience, the more we're going to be able to support them.
Yes. And let's look at the flip side too, because our listener is saying, I don't know how to support them. I don't know. And honestly, when I hear this question, I'm thinking this person probably needs support too. So I think sometimes we focus, as we should, on the person that is living, maybe, as this listener said, a different lifestyle. How do we, the people that are actually supporting those people, they often need support too. What would you say to that?
So to the person who is being supportive but is being judged for being supportive?
That is supporting the person in the different lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes it's like, okay, I've got to do the thing. I've got to get curious and I've got to stay open. But this feels really scary as a caregiver, a parent, a loved one. How do I get support? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I want to be that person. I want to be that soft place to land.
Yeah.
But inside I am feeling all nervous and torn up, and this feels really hard and scary. What would you suggest?
I'd say find a great therapist.
Yeah.
You know?
Amen.
You know,
Amen.
someone who's not going to judge you, who you could just like talk, like say anything to, and they'll hold it with you. I think
Yes.
that is so important. And if
Yes.
you don't have a therapist, you know, find a friend like that, someone who's just going to like hold the space with you. And I try and be that for people in my life. So I have people on like all sides of the belief spectrum, you know, all sides of understanding about LGBTQ stuff reach out to me, because they've found me to be a safe person, which is so lovely. But I had someone reach out to me just recently who was like, hey, my daughter just came out to me as bisexual, and I'm so glad, because that means she can marry a man someday. Like, she can choose to marry a man. And I was like,
wait a minute.
Yeah. And so I'm starting to, you know, like immediately there's like all these things I want to say to her, but I was like, hey, tell me more. Like, why does it matter to you that she would want to marry a man? Or, you know, if I want to even like take out that judgy word, like, why, like, help me understand why this matters to you that she marry a man, and then getting her to talk. And then a couple days later, I was talking to a friend who had another friend who said that same thing. It might even been the same person, who knows?
Okay.
But was like, my friend said that her kid came out to her as bisexual, and she's so glad because, you know, her friend can choose to marry someone of the opposite sex because she's bisexual. And she was so upset. She's like, that is not love. When you are choosing the right thing for your child, that is not love. And what I said to this friend was, you know, there was a time in my life where I was like praying to be bisexual because then I could choose to marry a woman. And that just seemed easier for me. And I said, if I've ever been at that place, I should have definitely give grace to someone who's at that place right now. And so what people need a lot of times.
Amen. By the way, amen. I love that.
Yeah. And of course we should always give people grace,
Yeah.
but especially when we had the exact same belief that they currently have that we no longer hold. And so I try and offer people that grace. And so what people need who are in this place of like, oh, this is really hard, is just someone who can just like hold that with them without judgment. And a therapist, of course, is great for that.
Yes.
But there are a lot of friends who can do that too. And, you know, I find like when I'm in therapy, this is not hard for me to do, like withhold judgment. But when I have a friend who's like, you know, I thought I was gay, but I think I'm bi. And then I ask them like follow-up questions like, this person is super duper gay. I'm not sensing a hint of bisexuality in what they're saying. I like, part of me is like, I just want to like correct them and be like, no, you're clearly gay. Like as a friend, that's like my impulse. But that has, and I have done that, and that has never been helpful.
Why do you think?
Because people don't need to be told about themselves. Yeah.
They already know. I'm like, we're the experts in our own lives, right? Sometimes we need help reflecting back what people see and maybe what we can't see in ourselves, but we are the expert in our lives, always.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
And I've never found it helpful for them like tell me like a quote unquote truth about myself. But when they like ask me questions, get me talking, I'm like, oh, there's a truth about myself. That's the thing that's been helpful.
Yeah. Be curious. Ask questions. I love that. And I love that idea of, you know, on both sides, there's fear. And there can be pain and discomfort, and both of them are valid. I think that's a really important thing to remember. It's not one or the other. It's not I'm in pain, so you're okay, or vice versa. Like, this is tough stuff to navigate, and to understand. Like, gosh, if we could give each other a little more grace, as if somebody is living differently than we are, and give ourselves grace too, and recognize they're going to make missteps, we're going to make missteps, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like, hopefully we're in it for the relationship. We're in it for connection. And this is new territory for a lot of people. So to give each other grace while we're going through it.
Yeah. Can I tell you one more personal story?
Please do.
So like I said, my mom has Alzheimer's, and I have been living here in Utah for a bit, and my family's from Washington, and my 3 siblings and my parents all live up in Washington. Like, they live near each other. And so my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then she lived at home, and my dad was taking care of her, and she just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And I would go home and visit, and I would help out, but, you know, the burden of caring for my mom was on my dad and my siblings who were there. And it came time to move her to assisted living. And everyone in Washington had a family meeting where they made that choice, like to move her to assisted living. And then they called me to inform me of the decision, and I disagreed with it. I disagree with it a lot. And I called all of my siblings and my dad to tell them why that was the wrong decision. And they all stuck with the decision that had been made and said that it was the right decision. And my reasoning was, my mom didn't know who we were. Like, she loved us and like knew we were important people, but she didn't know our names. She didn't know she had kids. But when we would drive around, she would always tell us how to get home, like what directions to turn to get home. I was like, the only thing she knows is her house. Like, we
and
can't.
She was correct on how to get home.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, we can't take her from the one thing she remembers. And so I pushed back a lot, and it caused a lot of friction. And in the end, she did move to assisted living, and I was wrong. Like, I made the wrong choice. But I pushed back really hard, and I damaged some of my relationships with my siblings doing that. We're all good now, but it was tough because I felt that the right choice was different than the choice that had been made by them. But then when it came time to move her, I flew up to Washington to like be with my dad that day, but I refused to help out in any way. Like, my sister drove her on her own. She's like, do you want to come with me? And I said, no, you guys made the decision. I'm not going. Like, what a brat. Like, I was being I was being such a brat. And that was the wrong choice. And I wish I could go back and make a different choice, but that's the choice I made at the time. And in the years since, she spent 2 years in assisted living, and then she ended up living with both of my brothers for the next 2 years after that until she passed away. And they were just always so helpful and always so kind. And I was focusing so much on this decision that I didn't agree with that I missed how much loving kindness they were offering to our parents. And just like how tired my dad was. And like he just couldn't do it. Like they made the right choice, and I was far away, and I thought something else was right.
Yeah.
And so I think we often do these kinds of things in families, but that doesn't mean that because we made a mistake we can't repair it.
That's right. And I love that you actually recognize it. Like I was a brat, and you. The thing is though, as you're talking, I think. But you had good reason. Like your intentions and your motives were good, but you were very frustrated going forward. And so instead of saying, you know what, I made a mistake, I made a misstep, right? Now you can see that. Yeah. But you were frustrated at the time. And so, yeah, we do that. We dig our feet in and we get solid. And because somehow it feels good to like, nope, I'm drawing a line in the sand here, and this is a hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah.
But to say, no, you know what, it's not the rupture, it's the repair. And again, there have been so many studies that say, yeah, the rupture is important, but it's actually the repair. It's when you can look at it and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. That wasn't the right move, and I'm sorry for it, right? Yeah. I mean, we have that ability, and we get to continue to mess up and continue to show up better.
Yes.
So I love that you're aware of that.
Yeah, and I try and learn from my mistake. I have a friend right now who is in her 70s, and her husband has dementia, and it's about time for him to move to assisted living. Like she can't care for him anymore. I just happened to be at her house for a Sunday dinner, and they were like discussing whether or not to move her, and people were like, well, Ben, what do you think? Like you've been through this, and I wanted to be like, hey, it's time, do this thing right now.
Yes.
But instead I said, well, a rule of thumb is like this, and I talk them through some things, and I think tomorrow might be a good day to do this. Like it's already overwhelming you, like clearly you're crying about this, and it's hard, and this is painful, and it's a rough choice, and then a couple of days later I called her, and she hadn't moved her husband to assisted living, and like my initial response would be like, you're 3 days too late. Like, you should have done this 3 days ago.
Sure.
Like, that's what I was thinking in my head. But what I said and said is, hey, I trust you to know what's right for you and your family. What can I do to support you in this choice you're making?
That's awesome. And again, it's about anything, right? I love and support you. How can I support you in this? I trust you. I mean, I think we all need to be reminded of that yeah. I trust you, I love you, and you may not agree, right? But you can love and support regardless. Yep. And Ben, I really appreciate the conversation. I appreciate, as you were talking, I thought, when we know better, we do better.
Indeed.
And when you've had experiences, you know better. You've experienced something. And that sometimes comes from painful experiences, and then we get to show up differently, and we get to show up differently for ourselves and for those around us. Yeah. And because of your experience with your mom, you got to show up differently. It's pretty awesome.
Yep.
So thank you for so many good insights. I love the reminder that support doesn't mean agreement, that we don't need to correct people, but we can love them and support them even if we don't agree. Your aunt's example was beautiful. I love that reminder. What I heard from you saying is, if it matters to you, it matters to me.
Definitely.
And that I can think about that, and our listener can think about that. Like if it matters to a loved one, it matters to me. And again, that like if it is playing Roblox, if it's Xbox, it doesn't matter. Like meet people where they are. And if we can do that, we can continue to have relationship. I also loved the reminder of that to find a therapist. If you're on the other side of this and you're afraid for what your loved one is doing or the choices they're making, and it feels scary and it's uncharted territory, find a good friend or a therapist that can be affirming and validating in your pain, and that matters too. So with that, Ben, is there anything else that we've left out or that you want to leave with?
I'll just give people a little practical advice.
Yeah.
If someone is making a choice you don't agree with or that you're struggling with, I would just say, yeah, tell me more.
Tell me more.
If you don't know what to say, just say, tell me more. And that's a phrase I keep in my pocket when something makes me uncomfortable or I'm not sure what to say. Just say, tell me more. And people are almost always excited to share more about what they're experiencing.
Such an easy phrase, and actually opens the door for so much more discussion and connection.
Yep.
Tell me more. I love that. Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your insights, and thank you for the good work you're doing.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And thank you for listening, and thank you for joining us on this important discussion. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe and share with a friend. And until next time, take care. That's a wrap for today on the Therapist Question Box. I'm Lindsay Schiss. Thanks for listening. And remember, every question you ask is an opportunity to learn and grow. Brought to you by Therapy Utah.
Hey, this is Kathy Kinghorn. I'm an owner at Therapy Utah. If you'd like to book with one of our trauma-trained therapists, go to www.therapyutah.org. Thanks for listening.